Hey guys, MetalJesus here, and today I'm very excited because I finally have the A500 Mini. This is a mini version of the amazing Commodore Amiga home computer. So many of us, myself included, were very excited when this was originally announced, and here it is in the game room. So today we're going to unbox it, we're going to review it, and oh yeah, we're going to play some games. So let's go ahead and start with an unboxing and maybe talk a little bit about what the Amiga computer is, in case you don't know. Perhaps you're like me, you have heard of the Amiga computer, obviously, but I didn't own one as a kid. As a matter of fact, in my town, everyone seemed to have Commodore 64s, and I only know one guy in town that actually had the original Amiga 1000. But I remember going over to his house and just being blown away by it. It was definitely next gen compared to anything else that was out there at the time, especially that original Commodore 64. And this is brought to us by Retro Games, which is the same company that also released the C64 Mini and Max just a couple years ago. So they've got a lot of experience making these little mini versions of home consoles, and yeah, I'm so glad that we have this. It looks so cool. So what's going on here? Well, first of all, it's an emulation machine. And what it does is it runs games and software basically from the original Amiga 500 home computer all the way up to the more advanced Amiga 1200. So that means it basically can run probably 1,000 games or something like that, maybe more. I have no idea how many Amiga games were released. Obviously, there were a lot of them. Now, this particular one right here, it comes with 25 licensed games already pre-installed on it, but then you can add your own USB stick with your own game images and basically expand that out. And like the C64 Mini, that keyboard on top right there is just for show. It's non-functional. Instead, they use a virtual keyboard that you can bring up at any time, and I'll show that working. Now, it does say in the manual that it will support an external USB keyboard if you wanted to plug one into it. However, I didn't really test that because honestly, I didn't really need it. Digging a little deeper, you'll see that there is an HDMI cable that is colored beige. I thought that was a really nice touch. Also, you notice this has a USB stick included. However, I think that is because this is technically a review unit, and so they included that just for convenience. But according to their website, I don't think that they're going to do this for the retail version. But again, USB sticks are super cheap, so it's not a big deal. And then check this out. They include a remake of the original tank-style 2-button mouse that came with the original Amiga. I thought this was really cool. And then because you're gonna be playing a lot of games, it also comes with a controller based on the Amiga CD32 gaming console. And it looks weird, but trust me, actually, this is a pretty comfortable controller. And then here's a size comparison between the original Amiga 500 and this new mini one. So as you can see there, they nailed the look and feel of it, but shrunk it down a lot. All right, so let's go ahead and fire it up and take a look. Because it is a computer, there are a lot of things that you can do with this, and we're gonna run through a lot of those different settings. The first setting being that there are 6 different languages that you can choose. So this is designed to be sold internationally. And then this is really important, the television settings. So you have the option to choose 50 Hertz or 60 Hertz output. Now, you would think, being in North America, you would want to choose 60 Hertz output because that's what our television supported. However, the Amiga 500 was way more popular in Europe. And so the vast majority of games actually will expect you to have 50 Hertz output. And so in the manual, they recommend that you choose the 50 Hertz option, but you can change it per game in the settings, and we'll get into that in a little bit. This is the main menu, and this is going to look very familiar to anybody who also has their C64 Mini, because it's basically the same thing, or at least very close. And you can scroll through the games that they include on the device itself, and it's a nice mix of pretty much every genre. You have racing games, you have adventure games, you have sports games, you have puzzle games, just a little bit of everything really. You can go into the display options and mess around with the different sizes or amount of zoom that you are comfortable with on your particular setup, as well as enabling a CRT effect, which is basically just kind of like scan lines. So for instance, here's the game, The Chaos Engine, and I'm gonna cycle through some of the different display options here. So again, depending on your setup, the type of HD television you have, you can kind of play around with these and kind of dial it into what you're most comfortable with. Another option you might want to check out is mouse sensitivity. I just left it at the default, and actually I thought it was fine. And what's nice is the 25 games that are already included with it are optimized to run on the hardware, so you actually don't have to go in and mess with any of the settings if you don't want to. Some other nice features of this are the ability to quickly see what it supports. So for instance, see those little icons there, and it'll tell you if it supports a controller, if it's single player or multiplayer, also if it supports the mouse. And each game has the ability to bring up this controller mapping, which is very important to do because you're going to want to know exactly how to play each of these, and it can change based on the game. Because remember, these are originally Amiga computer games, and so they'll assume that you have a keyboard to mess around with. So some of the mapping actually is for keyboard shortcuts. So again, just be aware. And like I said, the variety of games that are included on here are pretty fun. And, you know, from my perspective, it's really cool to just dive in and replay some of the classics, but also maybe discover some that I hadn't played before. Because again, remember that I didn't own an Amiga back in the day when I was a kid. I was a C64 kid. So, you know, this is in many ways very new to me. Now, you know, I bought an Amiga computer, a real one, probably 5 years ago for the first time. But when I got it, it's a little rough because it's so old. You know, it's got some video out issues. So in many ways, I'm discovering a lot of these games for kind of the first time. And the Amiga computer was just so ahead of its time. I mean, think back to 1985 when the original Amiga 1000 came out, and it blew away the competition when it came to graphics and sound. It was, you know, an amazing multimedia computer, and you can see that when you're playing these games. And so it's nice that it comes with 25 fully licensed games, which is great, but the big selling point here is that you can sideload your own games via a USB stick. And the way it does this is that it supports the WHD load format. Now, it's my understanding that the way that this works is that that format is a way of packaging up multiple floppy disks. Remember that this is a computer, and back in the day, games would come on multiple floppies. And so this is a way of getting a single package that has all of that stuff already built into it, into just one file, and then you just put it on the USB stick and you pop it in, and it recognizes it. And so suddenly a machine that can play 25 games suddenly has the ability to play hundreds, perhaps thousands of them. And it goes without saying, I'm so glad that they did this. They brought this ability to the Commodore Mini as well, and it just changed the whole aspect of it to be able to go out there and just replay so many awesome Amiga games so easily, really. I mean, it's just basically just plug and play. Now, I did mention that that keyboard on top is non-functional. It's just there for aesthetics, but the way that it works is, and I kind of want to show you, that if you run into a situation where you need to type in your name or choose an option on the screen, you can bring up that virtual keyboard on the right there at any time. And it actually works pretty well because it seems like most games just knew you would have a mouse anyways, and so often a lot of games would support the mouse or the joystick or, you know, controller, some sort of mix of that. So very rarely did I find the need to have a full keyboard, which is why I didn't even bother to plug one in. And the few times that I needed it, well, you just pop up the virtual one and you're on your way. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some advanced settings here. Now, the reason why they have these is because this is emulating a range of computers and a range of different hardware. And you'll see that demonstrated here with a game called It Came from the Desert. And as you're noticing here, it is very flickery during this intro. And so here's where you can go into the individual game settings. And at first I was like, well, maybe it's an NTSC game. And then I thought, well, okay, I'll turn on interlacing and see if that fixes it. And as you can see, it didn't make any difference. So And then I thought, okay, let's go ahead and go back in the settings, and this must not be an NTSC game. Maybe it needs to 50 Hertz, so enable that, tried it again. And it definitely looks better running at 50 Hertz, but there's that weird flashing thing going on. I wasn't entirely sure what that was. So again, back into the settings. And so you'll notice down there that you can mess around with the blitter mode, as well as giving it more memory, and also messing around with some of the chips. Now, I'm not entirely sure, I'm not an expert on all that, but basically what fixed it for me was turning on the CPU JIT, which I believe stands for just in time. So enabling that, now the intro runs flawlessly. So that was exactly it. And again, you're not gonna have to do that for every game, but it is really nice to know that if you have a game out there that isn't running quite the way you would like it to, you've got a bunch of other advanced options in here to mess with, and you can probably get it to where it runs perfectly. So at the end here, I kind of want to talk about who is this for, because, you know, we've been able to emulate the Amiga computer on modern operating systems for probably decades now. And so your computer, you know, can already run a lot of these things. But really what this is designed for is the person who is nostalgic for the Amiga computer. They want something small and compact that reminds them of their childhood. Also, it's truly plug and play. I mean, again, out there you can do this technically on the Mister, but the setup and configuration it's more complex than what this offers. Also, this gives them the ability to sell these in retail, right? So you can go into a Best Buy or a Target or a GameStop and potentially just pick up this A500 Mini, this little Amiga mini computer. And at $140, then that includes the console as well as the controller and the mouse. I think that's a pretty decent deal. But if you are already emulating all these on your, main desktop computer, probably not a lot of reason why you would want to spend $140 to get this, unless again you're nostalgic for it. But I do think it's pretty cool. I like the fact that there is a company out there that is making mini versions of these classic gaming computers, right? For years now we've had the Nintendos and the Segas and all that sort of stuff, and I love the fact that there's this company out there that is focusing primarily on classic PC gaming. I mean, where is our MS-DOS Mini? I think that would be absolutely amazing. But I would love to know what you guys think. Are you considering picking up the Amiga A500 Mini? If so, I'll leave a link down in the video description below. And as always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.